Well, we now know what the Isaiah Likely injury is. We dive into the news, the recovery timeline, what it means for the Ravens, and so much more coming up on this instant reaction edition of Locked On Ravens.
You are Locked On Ravens, your daily Baltimore Ravens podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
You are Locked On Ravens. Welcome into the show. I'm your host, Kevin Oestreicher of Ravens Wire, here with you on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thanks so much for being here on this little instant reaction breaking news edition on Wednesday morning. Free and available for you here on Locked On Ravens on all podcasting platforms, including in video form on YouTube, where you can like and subscribe to the channel. Also in audio form, where you can follow along and subscribe wherever you get your podcast. For 5 days a week on Locked On Ravens, we have the regularly scheduled programming Monday through Friday at 6 a.m. Eastern time. Plus, we sometimes have bonus episodes over the weekend. We go live after pieces of big news like we have right here, and also after every single Ravens game. And we also have the Raven Squad show. The Raven Squad show is live Mondays and Thursdays at 7:30 p.m. Eastern time, and that's always exciting. And we have so much Ravens coverage and content for you here on Locked On Ravens. Obviously, this morning's episode of the show, we talked about the potential outcomes of the Isaiah Likely injury. I had said that some Isaiah Likely news, I was thinking more extension. I didn't know what was going to happen. I had no insight on it. There were multiple conflicting reports. I was like, look, the Ravens are going to have some news that breaks in the morning. I'm not going to know what it is, extension, injury, and I didn't clip it up because it wasn't extension news. I said I'd clip it up if it was extension news, it was injury news. But we officially know Isaiah Likely, his injury, his timeline, his official recovery plan, I guess. We can kind of look into a little bit about how you manage injuries like this. So we'll talk about it here. It'll be the main topic of the day. And we'll really dive into the plan for Baltimore while Likely recovers. But the biggest news of all is something that John Harbaugh mentioned yesterday and talked about it this morning, which is the fact that this happened early enough in training camp where, it's not going to have the impact it would if it happened in week 1. That's the earliest case it could have happened during the regular season. Likely has the next month plus to recover without regular season football being on the docket, but it is going to be a decently lengthy recovery process for him. And it was officially revealed by Jeremy Fowler. The show this morning lasted about a good hour and 40 minutes. This news dropped 7:40-ish p.m. or a.m. Excuse me. So I'm still, my wires are a little crossed right now. Jeremy Fowler reporting. Let me pull up the official. And yeah, these live shows, we just kind of go with it. So Jeremy Fowler at 7:40, I believe it was, right? Yep, 7:40 a.m. Isaiah Likely suffered a small foot fracture during Tuesday's practice. Sources told Jamison Hensley, who was the Ravens reporter for ESPN, and him, if all goes well, it's an early season return in week 1 is possible. And then Ian Rappaport talked about him. He was very adamant yesterday that the Ravens and Isaiah Likely were not close on an extension. He gave an update that said that Isaiah Likely will have surgery this week to fix the broken bone in his foot. And the belief is he is out about 6 weeks, though depending on the outcome, it could be fewer. So let's pull up the calendar quickly here so we can actually outline exactly what 6 weeks from today is, just in the general timeline of, all right, what would the recovery be? So on the calendar today is July 30th. I don't know when he'll have the surgery. Could be today, could be tomorrow. We're just going to go with today. So 6 weeks from today, you got 1 week would be August 6th, which would be next Wednesday. Then you have 2 weeks the 13th, 3 weeks the 20th, 4 weeks the 27th. 5 weeks would be September 3rd, so still no season. 6 weeks would be September 10th. And if you want to pull up the Ravens schedule, we can do that real quickly. Week 1 for the Ravens. Want to know when that is? It's September 7th. So it puts him on that timeline. If it is the general 6 weeks that Ian Rappaport is reporting here, that's the belief apparently. Again, and it could be more than that. It could be less than that, depending on what it actually means. I'll try to play doctor as best as I can here. I am not a doctor. That's what I'm I'm going to try to do it. We'll pull up some diagnosis. And again, we don't know exactly what the bone that he broke was, the small fracture. So small foot fracture recovery. Let's just pull up what we can see here. All right. Yep. It says right here, usually it is about 6 to 8 weeks to heal. Obviously, it can vary depending on the severity and location of the fracture. Obviously, you're going to want to rest it. There'll be some other recovery involved. But honestly, look, with the way that it was kind of worded yesterday and how Likely was in a lot of pain, pounding the ground, getting carted off, obviously, when that situation happens and it's like a lower leg thing, you kind of assume the worst. Like, man, is this an ACL? Is this an Achilles? Like Harbaugh yesterday saying it was the ankle foot area, I think gave a lot of people relief, and Achilles is pretty easy to test for. So if it was an Achilles down in that area, they probably would have known it when it happened. So it was probably this outcome. And I talked about that on the show this morning. I said it probably is some level of an ankle sprain or something with the foot in terms of being, maybe it's a sprain, small fracture, something along those lines. So it's not best case scenario, because obviously best case scenario would be probably a grade 1 ankle sprain and he's out for like 1 to 2, maybe 3 weeks. That was probably your best case scenario. But even still, Likely is probably going to be able to get back on the field in the first month of the season. I with the way that it is being framed and being put out there, seems like it'd be pretty shocking if it extends into October. But certainly you also want to play the cautious game if you're the Ravens here, right? You don't want to have it be a situation where Likely rushes this thing back and they try to get him back on the field before week 1 to try to have him there against Buffalo, and then it's not fully healed or it's a risk to play on it, right? You don't want to, that's the scenario you want to avoid. You have to play it cautious with him. I'd be fine holding him. I mean, he's definitely not going to play in the preseason. That was never a conversation, in my opinion. For a lot of the stars, it's not a conversation just based off of, how the Ravens operate usually. But, at the end of the day, Likely has to be as healthy as possible before you put him back out on that football field, right? He has to be. You cannot risk anything. He is too important to the overall long-term outcome of the Ravens season this year. And I see it in the comments. And by the way, I appreciate everybody who's tuning in live here in the comments. We got Laura, Heather, we got Pete, Carlos is in here. A lot of people are in the chat right now. And if you're with us live on YouTube, appreciate you. If you're watching after the fact, listening after the fact, appreciate you as well. But I do see it in the chat. Blair here is saying, I'm kind of glad that we decided to keep Mark just in case something like this happened. Prayers up to Isaiah for a speedy recovery, right? So this is exactly it. And with trading Mark Andrews, it was always a conversation, with the way that his season ended last year and with how, I think at that point, like Isaiah Likely is fully ready to get, like, all right, he's ready to take on the tight end one role, right? He's the guy, like he's the future. And I still believe that. I still think this is Mark's last year in Baltimore, but I do think this opens up some perspective. And I was fine with trading Mark as long as they got a return that was right for him, right? I wasn't just going to trade him for a 7th round pick and say, see you later. Right? You needed to have the value for Mark. But in why after the draft, I was just kind of like, this doesn't make sense, is because the pick would be for next year's draft anyway, right? So you're not getting any immediate return on a player that to me is still a top 5 tight end. You have the luxury of Mark Andrews and Isaiah Likely playing together for another season. And Mark, I still believe, is an extremely talented and productive player. And in case of something like this, right? You never want it to happen this way. Mark is, and Likely could return by the time week 1 starts. And all of this is kind of like, oh, hey, they had Mark just in case. But it is that just in case scenario, right? It is just in case that a guy goes down like an Isaiah Likely, having star power, and whether you think Andrews is behind Likely on the depth chart or ahead of Likely on the depth chart, just having Andrews in that room is very, very important. So, for Isaiah, it's something that you can't you have to attack the recovery, but, you also have to be cautious with it. The team has a plan for tomorrow's show. I'm hopeful that Qadri Ismail will be able to join us, former Ravens receiver, and he is an expert in human movement, performance, and, we're going to ask him a lot about how to attack a recovery like this, what the timeline is 6 weeks, where he is feeling, where he is looking for that. So for now, look, Likely's a player that means a lot. You cannot mess with it. You got to be careful. And especially with the way that the Ravens have shifted their preseason focus, mainly after what happened to J.K. Dobbins back in, was that 2021 at this point? Was it 2021 or 2022? Well, I've blocked out that year, honestly, the cursed injury year where that was Edwards and Peters going down in the same practice. That they have kind of changed what they want to do, and they have become very cautious with their injury timelines. I believe that is that's the right path they should take here. So speed of recovery to Isaiah, and we're going to be diving into a lot more of Isaiah Likely Ravens conversation coming up in the second part of this instant reaction edition of the show, reacting to Isaiah Likely's injury status, his timeline, his diagnosis, and a lot more. So stay tuned. We got plenty coming your way here on Locked On Ravens. First, the show is brought to you by Yahoo Fantasy, and this episode is presented by Yahoo Fantasy. Fantasy football's back. Fire up the group chat, get your draft board ready, and buckle up for a season filled with breakouts, busts, and all of the overreactions we live for. It's all going down on Yahoo Fantasy. This year, me and Locked On Ravens are playing on Yahoo Fantasy, and you should too, whether you're a first-timer or a veteran making your millionth league. And for me, I've used Yahoo Fantasy for years and love how smooth the draft day experience is. You got your player analysis that can help you decide maybe between two players you really need to make a decision on. They have draft boards, which are incredible. It's all incredible over on Yahoo Fantasy. And to celebrate 28 years of fantasy greatness, Yahoo Fantasy is dropping 28 big new features over 28 days, giving you more ways to play, more ways to draft, and more ways to win. It all begins August 4th. Stay tuned to get started by creating or joining Yahoo Fantasy Football League at yahoofantasy.com/LockedOnNFL. That's yahoofantasy.com/LockedOnNFL. Let's make this fantasy season the best one yet. Back here, Locked On Ravens, Kevin Oestreicher here with you on this instant reaction edition of the show. We are live right now on YouTube. We go live after every single piece of Ravens big news, but fear not, if you can't catch the show live, we do have it available after the fact. You can listen to it and watch it after, but the live chat, it gives opportunity for me to chat with the amazing community that we've built here on Locked On Ravens. And look, we have right now a really good amount of people in the chat. We got C. Will in here, Tila's in here. It's a great turnout, especially for an early morning edition. It's the second edition of the day of Locked On Ravens, and we're not even to 11 o'clock yet. And Flora has asked me if I've slept. Yes, my schedule can be somewhat, different. So I woke up at about, I don't know. I can't even remember what time I woke up at. I saw the news and just, you know what? I said, let's go live. Let's go live. And we got John. We got a lot of different people. We got Baltimore in here, Big J. We got Tim. I mean, the live chats are always really fun for me. And in the final part of the show, I want to get to some questions. So if you have some questions, put them in the chat. I'll try to get to as many of them as I can. But right now, we're going to still react a little bit to the Isaiah Likely news. Obviously, news coming down about 7:40 a.m. It got a good hour and 40 minutes of my show this morning in before Jeremy Fowler decided to give the update. We didn't know when the show came out this morning about what the actual injury status diagnosis was. But obviously, the MRI came back, showed a fracture. Isaiah Likely, according to Ian Rappaport, will have surgery this week. And that is, that's how it is. And I see how they're talking about super chats. We don't do super chats here on Locked On. It's a network policy. So, I appreciate the fact that you're showing support by being here and being active in the chat. That to me is the support that means the world to me. So I appreciate everybody for being in the chat with me live. And turn notifications on. So when we do go live, and that includes for the Raven Squad show, we'll be back with that tomorrow, 7:30 p.m. Eastern time with Sam Njoku and former Ravens receiver Qadri Ismail. An hour long of Ravens talk. Actually, I was a little late starting up this show today because I was seeing if I could get a current Raven on the show to react with me and get some word out of him. How's it going over there at Owings Mills? He was in meetings though, and I'm serious. I'm trying to make it happen, trying to make it work. So hopefully in the future that will be something that we can dive into. But now for Isaiah Likely, the tight end room, Mark Andrews. I want to go down two different week one scenarios here, right? And that is clearly Isaiah Likely being in the lineup and Isaiah Likely not being in the lineup. How big of an impact does it have on the Ravens? Well, we do know that Charlie Kolar would be the next man up in that room. It'd be a lot of Mark Andrews and Charlie Kolar. I would expect to see, and here's my thing. If Isaiah Likely cannot go in week one, you have a couple of tight ends that could be the fourth, because then you have to also, it makes stuff weird with the 53-man coming out of camp. Like, do you keep 4 tight ends on the roster initially? Do you maybe sacrifice one of the guys? Do you cut an offensive lineman, cut a corner, cut a safety? Like, do you kind of do that? I personally wouldn't. I would not do that. I would still keep 3 tight ends, and then if Likely can't play in week one, I would probably just call up a guy from the practice squad. Like seriously, because I think, you're not going to put Likely on IR, obviously. You're not going to put him like even on PUP, like and any of those lists. I think that you can just keep him on the active roster. You can keep 3 tight ends on the roster and, call somebody up from the practice squad. That to me is, I think, the scenario I would go with. But I would expect to see more heavy wide receiver sets in the event that Isaiah Likely misses, as opposed to, now they're just going to try to fill, like, it's next man up, Kolar for Likely, which is going to be the thing. But I don't think they're going to try to, like, force whatever third tight end that would be onto the field. I think it's going to be more DeAndre Hopkins. I think it would be more Tez Walker. And yeah, look, Carlos right here, put Tez as tight end 3. Hey, let's do it. Let's put him out there. Get his hand in the dirt, get him blocking. Like, let's make it happen. But no, like, Tez is exactly my line of thinking here, where I think that if Likely does miss whatever it is, hopefully it isn't any time in the regular season, but if he does have to miss that Buffalo game, now that I'm just thinking about it live here, and this is the beauty of the live shows, you can just think about stuff live, throw stuff out. And I don't want to play with fire, right? I don't want to play with fire. But if Likely has to miss the Bills game, and they're still like that, he like really is almost all the way good to go, but still could use some recovery time, do you hold him out against Cleveland? Is that a game you feel confident enough in winning at home opener, Joe Flacco? I would see, like, if he's at like 95% and they're playing Cleveland in week 2, do you hold him out? And that, if you're in the chat live, put your answer down in the chat. And if you're watching after the fact or listening, put it in the comments, put it on social media. If Likely has to miss the Bills game, would you also hold him out against Cleveland to have him ready for week 3 at 100% as opposed to 95% at Cleveland? You get him back for that Lions game on September 22nd. That's a Monday night game, I believe, right? I'm pretty sure that's a Monday night game. So, I mean, it's just so tough, because my answer would probably be yes if they didn't lose to Cleveland last year. Like it would definitely be yes if they didn't. It still probably is. I think it still probably is. But the reason for that is not necessarily because it's Cleveland. It's because, and here we go. Yeah. Baltimore right here saying it. He doesn't come back until he's 100%. Right. I think the fact that I don't want Likely back at 95%, I want him back at 100%. Don't go crazy with it. Right. Don't go crazy with it. And Pete here has the opposite side of the argument, which, and I know Pete said that you'd say you'd bring him back. Yes, I see that here. But the other side of that argument is, if the Ravens start 0-1, do they want to have the best case scenario on the field for week 2, even if it's 95%? I'd still probably say 100% is what I want Isaiah Likely at, right? I'd probably say that. But, the big thing here is long-term picture. Because what happened last year? The Ravens started 0-2. Now, you don't want to do that again this year. I did not have fun when the Ravens started 0-2. That was not a fun time, right? But I want Likely back at 100%. I would not mess with anything. And I think we saw, and a guy that I'll bring up, and I brought him up on the show this morning, is Travis Jones with his ankle injury. He was trying to fight for his guys. He was trying to get back out there and, figure things out. But, at the end of the day, they were able to come back from that. They were able to get back on track. And while I don't want to have to go through that roller coaster 2 years in a row, please, I would like them to win a game in the first 2 weeks of the season. I still think going 0-2 and having Likely at 100% is my preferred outcome over Likely coming back at 90, 95 with that small chance something happens. And then what if it does, right? What if it does? Maybe it doesn't, right? There are multiple different outcomes. But I do think that having him 100% for the playoffs, right? That, and that's what I see people in the comments are saying 100% is always the best outcome here. But at this point, Isaiah Likely, he is one of the most important parts of this offense, and for multiple different reasons. His versatility, his skill set as an athletic. He's a jump ball, contested catch guy. He's improved as a blocker a lot over the years. I mean, this is a guy you need in your offense, right? And it's not anything about Mark Andrews, right? Mark Andrews is the guy that can find his way open, and Likely does that too. But, Mark and Lamar have that chemistry. Without Isaiah, the Ravens will be fine because they have Mark. And it'd be the same thing. If Mark wasn't there, the Ravens would be fine because they have Isaiah. The two of them together makes just an unbelievably good duo. But for now, it's going to be Mark Andrews for the time being. We will see if Likely can return in week 1. And kind of for the final part of the show, we're going to be diving into some just general Ravens talk. We'll keep talking about Isaiah Likely as well. And also, I want to answer some questions. So if you have questions, be sure to put them in the chat, and we'll talk about them coming up next here on Locked On Ravens. First, this show is brought to you by 5 Hour Energy, and it's time to fuel up and turn it up with 5 Hour Energy Transfusion. It brings the bold grape, ginger, and lime flavor of your favorite golf drink minus the alcohol into a quick, energizing shot. Whether you're sinking birdies, just making memories with friends, this one's a hole-in-one for your energy game. Let's be honest here. Some days on the course or even off of it, you just need the extra boost to stay sharp and energized. And I come from a golf family. A lot of my family are avid golfers, and I've seen my fair share of crazy hole-in-ones and crazy shots from the rough to the green. And that boost that 5 Hour Energy gives you, it is unmatched. And golf is all about good times with good people and good flavors, of course. The grape ginger lime flavor gives you the best parts of your clubhouse go-to without chasing down the bev cart. So if you go to 5hourenergy.com today, that is the number 5hourenergy.com. You can use my promo code LOCKEDONGolf to receive 20% off your order. This offer is only valid until September 30th on one order and cannot be used with other promotions. The code is not good on subscription orders. Whether you're meeting up with friends or trying to turn 18 holes into 36, get the energizing boost you need to power through. Order transfusion-flavored 5 Hour Energy shots today. Back here, Locked On Ravens Instant Reaction Edition of the show. Kevin Oestreicher still diving into it all with you here. Really appreciate everybody. It's about 10:47 to be exact, Eastern time in the morning, a little early live. This might be one of the earliest lives we've ever done. I think we might have done one at 9 a.m. Eastern time one time, so I don't know if this breaks the record, but it certainly is up there. Our regularly scheduled programming, it comes out at 6 a.m. Eastern time, Monday through Friday, but we have all different types of Ravens coverage and content for you here. We have live shows like this after every Ravens game and every single piece of Ravens big news. And we also are having bonus episodes on the weekends when headlines do permit. So appreciate everybody for being here. And for King, what'd you miss out on? We got the Isaiah Likely news. It came down the pipeline. If you missed out on it, it's Isaiah Likely suffered a small fracture in his foot, according to Jeremy Fowler of ESPN. So he will have surgery on it this week, according to Ian Rappaport. And the belief, according to Ian Rappaport, is that he will be out for around 6 weeks. So that puts him right at maybe he's back for week 1, maybe he's not. And then that opens up a whole different can of worms. If he's not available for week 1, what happens in week 2 against the Browns? So let's dive into some questions here. I used to do a weekly Q&A years and years and years ago when I first started out. I've had to pivot away because there's been too much to talk about and, hitting on everything. I miss doing it, so I want to do it here in the final part of the show. And RNF here asking, who do they bring up to take his place? Kolar goes to 2 for now. So who is 3? That's a good question. So let's pull up the Ravens depth charts, Ravens roster, and I'll be able to answer that for you here because I know, though, actually, they don't have their depth chart. I don't think the first depth chart has dropped yet. So you're going to have to go by the roster, but that's okay. You know, it makes things easy. So right now, they have a couple of other tight ends on the roster. Zaire Mitchell-Payton is one, who is he's a second-year player out of Florida Atlantic. And then Sam Pitts, who is a rookie, undrafted rookie out of Duluth University of Minnesota. So those would be the two. I mean, if we really want to get spicy and look at free agents, because why not? They should sign every free agent in existence. So free agent tight ends. Let's see who's available here right now. Wow, this is a very outdated article. I see Julius Thomas on this list. That is, I mean, I guess they wanted to bring him out of retirement. I guess you could do that, but no. We're not talking about that. Maybe they could bring back Dennis Pitta or something, you know, although I'm not sure how his hip would hold up, unfortunately, at this point. So the best available tight ends for agent-wise in 2025, Noah Fant is by far and away the number one. He just recently got released by the Seahawks. So if they were to sign a guy, Noah Fant would be my top choice. You also have apparently Jordan Akins is out there. Hayden Hurst, you could bring back an old friend, literally in Hayden Hurst. You know, Dennis Pitta, it was obviously a joke for Dennis Pitta, and still so unfortunate how his career was kind of cut short and taken from us due to the injuries, Dennis Pitta. But Hayden Hurst is an option. CJ Uzomah is out there, although I'm not sure if CJ Uzomah retired or not. Other than that, it's more so like stopgaps. Gerald Everett, maybe you bring in Mercedes Lewis, who's a vet. Michael Pruitt is out there. So, you know, I don't think at this point the Ravens will be looking to sign a free agent, but, you know, I guess it's never out of the realm of possibility. Maybe they want to feel a little better about their depth than, you know, they have right now. But their tight end room was one of the positions where they could lose somebody and you'd be like, all right, you still feel really good about it because you either have a Pro Bowl All-Pro guy or you have Isaiah Likely. So obviously it was Likely who got injured, but you still have Andrews. So, yeah. And then, that's question from RNF. Appreciate that. It's Pete. Kevin, do you think Ravens fans are being a bit hypocritical when it comes to Allen's MVP because Lamar won the same way 2 years ago? Now we care about stats again. I mean, yes and no, but there are differences. Like, to me, with 2023 and how Lamar won that award, my argument for Lamar is that the Ravens were by far and away clear-cut the best team in the NFL, and that certainly counts for something because of how much we heard about how Josh Allen was a 2 seed and Lamar was a 3 seed. So, you know, we heard all the time about, oh, hey, the Bills were the 2 seed and the Ravens were the 3 seed. Like, I understand people who are like, you know, Lamar's season statistically in terms of MVPs, you know, I think, what was it? He was the first MVP to not finish top 10, and I don't even remember the stats. It was passing yards, I think, or something else. Like, I get it. Like, I get it. But at the same time, the Ravens did finish as the best team in the league. And again, it wasn't close. And plus the other arguments for guys, like, if anything, like, I hear Bills fans arguing it should have been Josh Allen in 2023. And I'm just quickly pulling up his stats. Josh Allen had a ton of, he threw 18 interceptions in 2023. 18 interceptions. That's not going to win you the MVP. It's not. And then for Dak, like, I get it, the stats, but the Cowboys, let me pull up the Cowboys record for 2023. Not records, record. The Cowboys record in 2023, they were 12-5, whereas for the Ravens, I believe, I already lost track of what their record was. Ravens record, I believe it was 14-2. No, there was 13-4. They were 13-4 in 2023. So it was still the one win thing, but, you know, there was so much attention given to the fact that the Bills had one more win than the Ravens last season. So I understand it from a stats perspective, but I just think there were stronger other arguments for Lamar in 2023 than there were for Josh in 2024. And I think Josh had an incredible season. He was absolutely amazing. But, you know, that conversation's over. Josh won the MVP. So, you know, it is what it is. So let's see. Another question. Carlos, what are your realistic expectations for Mike Green and Malachi Starks? I may be biased, but I believe one of them will win Defensive Rookie of the Year. Hey, you're not alone. I mean, who was it? I think Gerald McCoy, Malachi Starks was his pick to win Defensive Rookie of the Year for the NFL this year. So you're not alone in believing that one of those guys could do it. I'm super high on both these guys. Both of them are extremely NFL ready. They have the ability to make a huge impact in year one. And again, like I've been saying a ton on the show, I even said it yesterday. I said it yesterday. where if they can get the same production that they got in year one from Nate Wiggins and Roger Rosengarten from Malachi Starks, and, you get that from Mike Green as well, you're in a really, really good spot. I think that Malachi does have defensive rookie of the year potential. I think the way he's going to be moved around in this defense, his steady presence in the back end, the ball skills, I think we'll see Malachi have, I'm going to say 3 to 4 interceptions this season as a rookie. I think that's really solid for him. I'm not sure the tackle numbers will be crazy high for him because I think he'll be doing a lot of other stuff, but him being able to come down and run support, hopefully he'll be able to improve a little bit in that aspect. But I think he'll set the table for a lot of his teammates, which is going to be really important, especially as the Ravens just have a more consistent option. Not that Ardarius wasn't consistent for them last season, but it took a while for them to get there. Right? It was a fight every week at the beginning part of the season of man, what are we doing here? Marcus Williams, Eddie Jackson, Brandon Stevens. I think Malachi brings everything you wanted from those 3 players, and you have it in one. So I'm really excited. And for Mike Green, I've said it before, I think that Mike Green, one of my bold predictions, and we'll do a bold prediction show a little bit later, as August wraps up. But my bold prediction, or one of them, is that Mike Green will be the best pass rusher on the team by the time the season ends. And I just think he has that all-world talent. I talked about that yesterday as well after we heard Mike Green just dominated in pads. I mean, he is extremely powerful. He's a 3-down player. The speed to power he has a pass rush plan, the arsenal of moves, and he also understands he has to earn it. He has a chip on his shoulder. He is hungry, ready to compete. And truly, I think that his role will continue to increase every single year. So that to me is I'm with you, Carlos. I think both those guys have potential to do it. Will they? I don't know. I'm not sure. But they certainly, I believe, will be in that conversation. Let's see. We got a couple more. It's Pete asking, how do you think they handle having to get Tyler, Kyle, and Lamar signed next offseason, maybe even Zay? Whew. Yeah, it's going to be a lot. It's going to be a lot. I mean, when you look at where they need to kind of pivot here, especially I think Linderbaum is a high priority because he is expiring. You technically have time to work on guys like Lamar and Kyle and those guys. But at the end of the day, Lamar has a $70+ million cap hit this next offseason. You have to get something done. The deadline for, I believe, all these guys, and I think this is both player and team, is probably going to be by the time the season starts. You're hopeful at least to see one of those guys get signed. Hopefully 2 of those guys get signed. Likely is one that I would love to see signed. I'm not sure, with the injury that happens at this point now before the season. Hopefully it does. I still think that you should pay Isaiah Likely. I don't think a foot fracture deters those conversations for me at all. It's not like an ACL or an Achilles or anything. He'll be able to bounce back, recover. But they have a lot of extensions to hammer out here. Tyler Linderbaum is going to reset the market at his position. Kyle Hamilton's going to reset the market at his position. Lamar Jackson's going to reset the market at his position. It's going to be that way. Mark Andrews and Isaiah Likely both will get near top market deals, I believe, for tight ends. Not that I think they'll keep both of them, but we'll see. And then, it's Pete. Marlowe's contract also is one. They're going to have to figure out Jaire Alexander. They're going to bring him back or not. I mean, there are a lot. You have to figure out Zay, as he talked about. That's one that's coming down the pipeline. It's gonna pop up sooner than you think. So I think they're re-signing everybody know. And especially what's it Owe? That's one you got to figure out. Kyle Van Noy's up after this season. The list of free agents, it's there. So I believe that they'll be able to maneuver the cap, make things work, because other big time contracts will expire by the time some of these guys are up. But it is a kind of a maneuvering process. So we'll see. I'm hoping for 1 or 2, though, by the time the season starts. And then let's get to one more here. King asking, do you think that we will win against the Bills? Hopefully we don't go 0-2 again. Ouch. I do. I think that the Bills improved on defense. I give them credit. That was something I believe they needed to fix. They brought in Josh Palmer. I thought their draft was pretty decent, although I'm not sure what happened to their first round pick, Max Harrison. I know he got injured at practice. I don't know if that was serious or not. But yeah, regardless, I think that they do beat the Bills. I think they match up better with the Bills than the Bills do the Ravens. I just think obviously it was more of that playoff stuff. And, we saw in the regular season last year, the Bills run defense, it was something, and they brought in some big dudes in the offseason. So it's going to be a little different this year, but I still do think that the Ravens offense and the chip on their shoulder. Like, I think it's going to be something similar to a very close game like Kansas City was in week number 1 last season. Obviously, they came literally a toe short, which, kind of crazy to think about now that Likely has a fractured bone in his foot. I guess Isaiah Likely in the foot just can't get away from it, unfortunately. And it hasn't been great stuff with the foot for Isaiah. So, hopefully we're done with the good. We're done with the bad foot news. We'll get into, better days ahead for Isaiah Likely and his relationship with his foot. But regardless, I think that for the Ravens, they're going to have that chip on their shoulder and they'll be able to come out with a win. I think they're also motivated by the fact that they can't start 0-2 again. Like, you can't have that happen. And yeah, I believe they're going to come out on top. And King asking, will I be covering the preseason games? I will. And I actually hopefully will have something in store for the preseason games that I've never done before. So I'm really, really excited for that. So be sure to stay tuned for all that. But that's all I have to hear today on this instant reaction edition of Locked On Ravens. Thanks so much for tuning into the show. I'll be back here tomorrow, unless some crazy news breaks. Then we'll be back later today. But we'll be back tomorrow with another edition of the show. We'll be diving more into Isaiah Likely and his injury. Former Ravens receiver Kyle Ismail will hopefully join us, and we'll have all that and more. So be sure on the way out, hit the like and subscribe button in video form. Follow along in audio form, and I will see you right back here soon on Locked On Ravens.